What's going on, folks? It's Kid Shorty Gaming Nation, back in the building, going live again. Um, as the title says, I am breaking down and reviewing how Marxism infiltrated a lot of the pro-black organizations, civil rights organizations, and how it influenced a lot of civil rights leaders, right? And when you look at the structure of Marxism and you look at the structure of um, communism and socialism, right? What they do or how they got into the civil rights movement is that because black folks, they were fighting for uh, their rights here in America, and black folks, they were fighting to be looked at as equal human beings, right? So it's like, because of Marxism says that the working class is trying to uh, what he did is he critiqued capitalism. And Marxism says that the power is going to go into the working class to what you. How should I explain it properly, right? I should explain it properly. Now, before we go into that, people, when you come into my channel, like, share, subscribe, respect the topic, and respect what I want to talk about. If you can't respect the topic and what I want to talk about, I'm just going to go into subscriber mode, right? What I have to talk about is more important than what you got to talk about. And the reason why you click the like to come on the channel is because you see the title. So if the title's not what you're talking about, don't come in the view. Click like, share, subscribe, speak to the topic, or argue or debate with me about the topic, right? But anyway, because communism or socialism or Marxism, it has a rebellious nature to it. Because the structure of Marxism, or Karl Marx, is that he critiqued capitalism. And his idea was that the labor force or the production of goods goes into the power of the labor force, right? And that the labor force or the working class is going to be on the same level or equal to that of the upper class. So Marxism started really as an argument of class, not racism. Now, why it may seem appealing to a lot of civil rights leaders or a lot of the pro-black organizations is because black folks who are at the bottom in the American space were fighting for equal rights or fighting to be on the same footing or level as white people, right? And capitalism being viewed as something wicked and evil, it was appealing to black folks. This is why when you try to talk about capitalism to a lot of black people, they look at it as a white supremacist type of thing, right? Even though Marxism wasn't about white supremacy or racism, Marxism was about an argument between the working class, middle class, and the higher classes. In other words, the working class, right, had an issue with the upper class getting wealthy and having more money and power than the working class. So that was a class argument, right? Communism came through now and said, and it was appealing to black folks, or because at the time, black folks was at the bottom in America during slavery, during Jim Crow, during all these things, right? So communism infiltrated. So you had a lot of those pro-black. That's why you have a lot of pro-black organizations like the Black Panther Party, a lot of civil rights movements, even within the Nation of Islam. A lot of times, you can see and hear it. A lot of the civil rights leaders. This is why a lot of them are Marxists, right? Because Marxist has a rebellious overthrowing of what's above you or higher than you, right? So we're gonna go into it. This is why there's a lot of issues with black folks, and this is why a lot of black folks are broke, right? Because in order for Marxists to have any growth to it, you have to be at the bottom. And with Marxism and socialism, you have to now have control over the goods and the production of goods. And you're distributing those goods to the poor class or the working class. But now if the working class gets to capitalism and they have power over their own profits, they don't really need anything above them to control how their output, their outcome, because the individual controls their outcome, right? So let's look at Marxism. The Marxism and the fight for black freedom, listen to that. The oppression of black people has been a fundamental part of capitalism in North America since its inception, along with nationalism. Racial division has historically been the key ideological tool used by the ruling class to prevent the emergence and powerful united working class movement, which could challenge its rule. Racism and super exploitation of black population has also been the source of massive profits for the ruling class. But while this has remained a constant, the form of black oppression has changed enormously, from slave system to sharecropping under Jim Crow to the integration of large section of black population in industrial production, starting in World War I and the mass migration of black people to the northern cities in the 1930s. Now, listen to how Marxism turned itself from a class argument to a racial argument, using the fact that black folks in America was being ruled by white folks in the ruling class. Not understanding that you had white poor class people too in America. They just wasn't being enslaved, right? You had Italians that came here. You had Russians that came here. You had European immigrants that came here. They were also being oppressed, and they were part of the working class. But one must ask, how did those European nationalities work themselves up from the working class to the middle class and to the higher class, right? And then if you go back to Africa, you have a lot of ruling classes in Africa that practice capitalism. They may not call it capitalism, but it's capitalism. Like if you go to Nigeria, and this is before European colonialism, if you study the African landscape, or a lot of the countries and nations in Africa, they practice capitalism. Now, how this is framed is framing the ruling class as being white people and black people being the working class. And the reason why it's framed that way is because black folks in America were slaves, right? And the white people were the slave masters in a ruling position. And the white slave masters used capitalism to dominate black folks, right? But we know that slavery is not race specific. Slavery, Africans enslave other Africans. Europeans enslave other Europeans. Because remember, like I said earlier, Marxism wasn't a racial thing. Marxism was based upon class, not race. Karl Marx was a white European that was critiquing other white Europeans at the time. So now, because in America, white people under a capitalist society and black folks in that capitalist society was a slave class and was seen as 3/5 of a human being, Marxism can come in and use black folks who are in the slave position or in the losing position and utilize their struggle to say, okay, black folks, we're going to now use your struggle to overthrow capitalism, which is ruled by white folks. See what I'm saying? This is why today it's important, in order for Marxism to work, you got to keep black folks in a struggling position. And as long as they're in a struggling position or in a losing position, they will always need to overthrow what's above them, or what's above them, a class above them. But now, if you teach black folks how to participate in capitalism, how to get to the bag and get to the money, it can position themselves on the same level in a capitalist society as the white man or other groups of people here, right? Because look at this, for example. Asians, like the Chinese, the Koreans, and the Japanese, they come from communist or socialist countries. But when they get here to America and they learn how to be capitalists, they shoot very far, right? Asian people, when they come to America and they adapt to capitalism, they do better than white people. Even Nigerian blacks that come from Africa and they come here and they adjust to capitalism, they outdo a lot of white people. Even Caribbean blacks, when they come here, like Jamaicans, Trinidadians, and Haitians, when they come to America and they adapt to capitalism and they get to the paper, they, in a lot of cases, can outdo a lot of white people. Right? For example, let me look at the average earning income of Asians. Average rich income of Asian Americans. The median income of Asian American households in the United States vary widely by subgroup, but here are some general statistics. In 2022, the median income for non-Hispanic Asian American household was $107,367, higher than the median income for other racial and ethnic groups. Median income varied by Asian American subgroups. Indian Americans have a highest median income of $119,000, followed by Filipino Americans at $90,000, Japanese Americans at $83,000, and Chinese Americans at $82,000. Mind you, Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, I don't know much about India, but I know for a fact that Chinese and Japanese, they come from communist countries. So if these Asian groups are able to come to America from communist countries, adapt to capitalism, and outdo the average white people, this is what let me know that capitalism is better than Marxism, socialism, or communism. So let me look up what the average Chinese income is in China. Average income in China. I bet you there's no average income for China. According to the recent data, the average income in China is around 39,218 yuan per capita per year, which translates to roughly 5,511 USD based on, bro, China is communist. When we look at this, what's the average salary in China? No, hey, brother. China is a communist country. The annual average wage of a typical Chinese employee is around 352 yuan, which is 50 USD. In this article, we'll delve into the numerous details of Chinese average salary. We also talk about the legal provisions for wages and advantages of outsourcing in China. In China, the average monthly salary is 29,300 yuan, equating to USD of 4,214 US dollars. Right? That's the median salary per month. The maximum minimum salary range is, I'm sorry I'm going off topic, but I'm just comparing to Chinese in a communist country versus Chinese in an American capitalist economy, right? The average salary in China ranges from 7,410 yuan per month, which is 1,066 USD, to 131,000 yuan, which is 18,000 per USD per month, with 7,410 yuan being the minimum salary and 130 yuan being the maximum salary. Right? Let's compare. Let me see the average income. So I don't want to go into a tangent. I want to stick to the point. My point is that why black folks in America under Marxism is broke is when you try to preach capitalism to black Americans and how capitalism could raise their financial state, they disagree with it. And the reason why they disagree with it is because there's a lot of Marxism in there. And there's a lot of Marxism being preached towards blacks in America. And the reason being is because a lot of civil rights leaders were Marxists, which were socialists, right? And the reason why they don't like capitalism is because capitalism is seen or taught to the black American that it's white supremacy. It's the white person. And Marxism is anti-capitalism. And the reason why Marxism is Marxism is anti-capitalism is because it's off the basis that the working class should have should have power in production, right? How should I explain this, right? Let me read it properly, right? Let me read up the structure of Marxism. Marxism definition. Right? So Marxism is a political, economic, and social philosophy that analyzes the history of humanity through the lens of class, struggle, and economic factors, right? So remember I said it's a class struggle. Let me look at what his theory was. Marx theory. Karl Marx. Theory. I don't think it's trying to make Karl Marx out to be a damn black dude. No. His key theories were a critique of capitalism and its shortcomings. Marx thought that the capitalist system would inevitably destroy itself. The oppressed workers would become alienated and ultimately overthrow the owners to take control of the means of production themselves, ushering in a classless society. So, let me read this again. Marx thought the capitalist system would inevitably destroy itself. The oppressed workers would become alienated and ultimately overthrow the owners to take control of the means of production themselves, ushering in a classless society. Now, when you take that idea and you put it in the framework of black people, racial oppression, and here in America, that translates in black Americans who are at once point in time in America enslaved by white folks, one day overthrowing white people and eliminating racism. So think about that, right? That's why it sounds so appealing to a lot of black Americans that were involved in the liberation of black people. So it's like Marxism just switched from a classist thing to black folks rebelling against a racist system. So I'm gonna read it here, right? The fight for black freedom was gone through a corresponding series of phases, from slavery rebellions to the abolitionist movement to the struggle of black workers alongside white workers to build industrial unions in the 1930s and the 40s, to the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s. The labor movement and socialists have been confronted from the beginning in this country with the strategic task of challenging racism as part of mobilizing working people in their class interests. Karl Marx famously said that labor in the white skin can never free itself, as long as labor in the black skin is branded. What? Marx died in what year did Karl Marx die? How he said, what year did this nigga die? Karl Marx death. Okay, so he died in 1883. All right, so it's possible he said that. It's possible he said that. Karl Marx famously said that labor in the white skin can never free itself as long as labor in the black skin is branded. Marx and his comrades in the International Workmen's Association, commonly known as the First International, saw the war to end the slave system as a revolutionary event of world historic significance. Early American followers of Marx and other radical immigrants were active in the abolitionist movement and fought for the North. The most prominent of them, Joseph Vladimir, became a general in the Union Army. Oof. The early labor and socialist movement. The Knights of Labor in the late 19th century and the industrial workers of the world stand out in the early American labor movement for their determination to organize black as well as white workers. The IWW in particular saw fighting racism as a strategic task in building effective working class organizations. This could not be said about American Federation of Labor, the main union body of the beginning of the 20th century. In fact, it was a feature of the AFL's turn toward a conservative craft-based approach that it was prepared to accept unions that actively excluded black workers. Woo! Damn. So now, that's not an issue of capitalism. That's just an issue of being racist, right? So now because Marxism wants to include blacks, right? Because I'm taking it that blacks outnumber a lot of white people that was enslaved. Like black slave outnumber a lot of white people. So now if you have blacks part of your Marxist movement in America, that can help you overthrow class or white people in America. Not really race white people, but really class in America. So it's like black folks was used by Karl Marx or socialism to overthrow whatever capitalist system was here in America. You feel me? But it was in the building of mass industrial unions of the CIO in the 30s and 40s that the questioning of uniting black and white workers was posed in a decisive way. For example, the successful organizing of big three automakers by the United Auto Workers was only assured when they won the large black workforce in the Ford to the union through an anti-racist and class appeal and faced down racism within the union. The CIO's failure to organize the South, which would have required the labor movement to lead a full-scale onslaught on Jim Crow, was a defeat which marked the beginning of the end of the most promising potential revolutionary phases of the U.S. class struggle to date. So that's how that happened. So Karl Marx, they just use black folks as, how you say, a tool or a cannon fodder to help them overthrow. So guess what it was? It was white people from Europe that didn't like other white people because those white people from Europe were losers, and you had other white people who were winners, right? The working class in Europe or in the UK that was under Karl Marx didn't like the fact that you had white people who were of class that were better than them. So now, when those white people or German socialists came to America, they wanted to do the same thing over here in America. But it just used the fact that black folks, because blacks were once upon a time, at that time, were slaves under white people who so happened to be capitalists. Marxism just combined racism with classism. And it just used black folks' struggle to help them fight against capitalism. And it just phrased capitalism as white supremacy, right? So let's go here. This is why you see a lot of civil rights leaders and pro-black power movements being as Marxism. Because you can fight white capitalism by being black capitalism, by being black capitalists, right? Marxism has played a role in black liberation ideas in the decades immediately after the Russian Revolution, and again during the civil rights black power movements of the 1960s and 70s, seems to be absent in much of the discourse of Black Lives Matter. Yet the ideas of Karl Marx keep returning to our world as capitalism experience, crisis upon crisis. I don't know what crisis upon crisis is y'all talking about. And a new generation is interested in exploring the possibilities of socialism, especially as it relates to black liberation today. Black folks, you're not enslaved by white people anymore, bro. What liberation do you need in 2024? One major problem to overcome is discussed in Marxism today is the contradictory history of Marxists post-Marx. This is particularly true of the totalitarian practice of actually existing socialism. In Stalin's Russia and Mao's China, as well as the very checkered history of the Communist Party in the United States, in regards to the question of the Afro-American liberation. It is here where the ideas of Marxist humanist philosopher, revolutionary, I don't know how to say your name, might be of some assistance. In the 1940s, this person used Marx's economic categories to analyze Russia, understood as not a communist Marxist society, but as a state capitalist one. What? Russia? How are you going to view it as a state capitalist one when Russia or during the Soviet Union was using Marxist socialist principles to do what they were doing? And now you're going to now gaslight people by calling it state capitalist? At the same time, she firmly aligned the independent struggles of African American workers, whom she termed Negroes in the Revolution. Oh, this was a chick. Critical analysis of the relationship between black and red, black liberation and revolutionary Marxism, drew upon Marx's writings on the black question at the time of the Civil War in the United States to develop a unique approach to Marxist thought and practice. Unlike the vast majority of American Marxists and socialists of the mid-20th century, who subordinated the Negro question to the class question, this person insisted, along with C.L.R. James, that the dimensions of class and race were inextricably related in American history, and they needed to be worked out in unison for a future of American Revolution. So, it's crazy how Marxism, under the disguise of American Revolution, this is why I say Marxism has a rebellious nature to it, right? That's crazy. I'm trying to gather my thoughts right now. Because remember, these are Russians. These are Europeans, right? Let me read this right here. Pointed to what influenced Marx in the United States in the period leading to the outbreak of Civil War, the abolitionist writings and actions, the ongoing slave revolts. John Brown at Harpy Ferry and expressed this as the American roots of Marxism in her 1958 publication, Marxism and Freedom. For any serious Marxist analysis of the class question in America could not be considered separate from the black question. The Montgomery bus boycott in December 1955 proved a particularly compelling event for, I don't know how to say your name, sister. She pointed to, or Russia, she pointed to the participants being in continuous season. Daily, there are small meetings 3 times weekly, mass meetings, all the times. Wow. So, a lot of those pro-black organizations, revolts, all those things that took place in the 60s during Jim Crow, all of them had a communist Marxist origin. And you had white people who may not have liked black folks, but they were just using black folks because of their numbers to help them eliminate capitalism in America. They just use, that's crazy to me, right? Let me read this. Civil Rights Movement, she wrote her most comprehensive statement on black liberation as the book. American Civilization on Trial, Black Masses as Vanguard for the Sentinel of the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1963. For her vanguard was not the vanguard party, but the self-active of mass from below. It was a black and labor history study from slavery and the American Revolution to the Civil Rights Movement. But people don't understand that the Emancipation Proclamation, this is 1963, right? What's funny to me is that the Republican Party, who are conservative and who are capitalists, Abraham Lincoln, they were anti-slave party. They were the ones who freed blacks during slavery, right? So let me look up who Abraham Lincoln was. What was his choice? Abraham Lincoln. capitalist or Marxist? Let's see. So now we have to go into Abraham Lincoln, and ooh, hey, it's possible Abraham Lincoln might have had some Marxist ideas. Let's see. Lincoln and his Republican Party, like the big party to which he had previously belonged, believed that free market capitalism was the best way to create economic opportunity. But Lincoln did not believe in laissez-faire approach. He favored proactive policies to achieve this goal. So right here is saying that Abraham Lincoln believed in free market capitalism. But here is saying that, okay, so right here, according to the Washington Post, Lincoln was not a socialist, nor a communist, or Marxist, just a House Speaker, right? Hey, it's possible. Possible. But let's go back to the main thing, right? Black liberation. No, let me read here. A subsequent edition would add the following paragraph in which Dunya, I don't know how to say your name, Marx reference in the ethnological notebooks to the Australian Aborigine as the intelligent black, in sharp response to an ethnologist who had written dismissively of the Aboriginal thought, brought to a conclusion that the dialect he had unchained when he first broke from the bourgeoisie society in the 1840s and objected to the use of the word Negro, as if it were synonymous with the word slave. By the 1850s, in the Grundrisse, he extended that sensitivity to the whole pre-capitalist world. By the 1860s, the black dimension became at one and the same time, not only pivotal in the abolish of slavery and victory of the North in the Civil War, but also the restructuring of the capital itself. In a word, the often quoted sentence, labor cannot emancipate itself in the white skin, or in the black skin is branded, far from being rhetoric, was the actuality and the perspective for overcoming that reality. Marx reached at every historic turning point for a concluding point, not as an end, but as a new jumping off point, and a new beginning and a new vision. So this is how Marxism, socialism, and communism got integrated with black liberation and the civil rights movement. Because now the basic framework of what called Marxism is that the working class will gain power back from the capitalist society, overthrow capitalism, and eliminate class. It's just now that because in America now, the ruling class or the ruling people over black folks was white America, and they were based off of a free market capitalist society, which was Republican, right? So now because black folks were slaves to that, it was easy for Karl Marx or a lot of Marxism to identify or link blacks being enslaved with the Marxist idea of the working class overthrowing capitalism and eliminating that class. That's how easy it was. This is why you have a lot of organizations like the civil rights movement, um, what you call um, Black Lives Matter. What's the other one? NAACP. Uh, a lot of those pro-black organizations. This is why you see a lot of so-called small hats in there. A lot of European white people in there, because it's European white people who are socialists who ultimately want to overthrow capitalism to eliminate class, using black folks and their liberation struggles as a way to do that, right? The only problem with America is because you have now this is to white people, right? Because you were racist under your capitalist society, it was easy for other white people to use black folks and recruit black folks to be communist, socialist, or Marxist. Where if you had made capitalism fair if you wasn't trying to keep black folks underneath you, that wouldn't have happened. Which is why probably Abraham Lincoln said, no, the Republican Party, we're going to treat black folks as some equal, or allow black folks to have a fair shake in capitalism, right? Because if we don't do that now, it's going to be easy for socialism to use black folks or black people to overthrow our capitalist society. So this is how dangerous racism is for white people in general. And you see it today. Because if white people during Jim Crow, which is funny is because the Democrats during Jim Crow, they were leftists too. They were left. This is what's confusing me about Marxism. Because the ideology behind socialism of Karl Marx, let me read it to you. This is what Karl Marx's thing, right? Let me read it to you. Where is the... Let me read it to you. Remember, Marx's idea was that eventually the working class will overthrow the class that's above them and eliminate class, right? So I'm going to read it to you. Carl's talking about how why black folks have a lot of socialist, Marxist ideas and communistic ideas, right? So here it is. His theory or critique of capitalism, mind you, this is Karl Marx in Germany, right? He's a German. His critique of capitalism and its shortcomings, Marx thought that the capitalist system would inevitably destroy itself. The oppressed workers would become alienated and ultimately overthrow the owners to take control of the means of production themselves, ushering in a classless society. So that right there in that sentence is the workers are going to overthrow that capitalist system. You see what I'm saying? So now, if you take that, now mind you, this is about class. This is a white person or a European person critiquing other Europeans. So you couldn't call it racism. You could call that classism. What should let black people know is that you have white people that see themselves as above other white people. No. See, what happens is it can lead to communism because the framework of communism is that communism is where the state or that government owns the private property. So let me show you what communism is, right? Communism, a political, economic, philosophical ideology that aims to create a class of society where state controls the means of production and wealth. In a communist society, everyone shares the benefits of labor equally, and there's no private property or currency. So communism is the same as, or similar to Marxism. It's just that the thing with communism is where the overthrow of that government becomes violent. right? So now this sounds good, but what ends up happening is now whatever state or government that's in power, if they decide to become corrupt, they're now in control of the people, private property. So the power is not within the people, the power is within that state government. So it's similar to like it's similar to like feudal Japan or medieval feudal Europe, where a feudal lord had his vessels, the vessels being the people or those houses. And then now that feudal lord can rent out or have tenants on that land. So now that feudal lord, like Genghis Khan, decides to now wipe out, those people or raise taxes or whatever. Those people are subjected to that feudal lord. See what I'm saying? So that's what communism is. As opposed to capitalism society, that power is within the power of the people. I can own my private property, and then now I can go start my own business, and I control the means of production in a free market. A free market is where the people is between the buyer and the seller. I'm the buyer, the private citizen, buying from the seller, who is the business. And also promotes selling what you call supply and demand. The private citizen, is in demand. The seller, who's the buyer, is supplying my demand. And on top of that, I myself, if I want to go compete in a free market, I can become the buyer, who's in demand, can become the seller and produce what the person who's demanding something. So now the producer can be the seller. The producer produces what's being demanding and sells to the buyer who's demanding it in a free market. And in that free market, I have control over that. Now, in a healthy capitalist society, we have to create things like the FDA. Oh, so hold on, let me read this to you. Regulations of capitalism, right? Capitalism. So this is capitalism, right? Supply and demand. Market prices are determined by the supply and demand. Profit. Producers must produce profitable commodities. Innovation. Technologies change and innovations are required. Private property. People can own tangible assets like land and houses, and intangible assets like stocks and bonds. Self-interest. People act in pursuit of their own good. Competition. Firms can enter and exit markets freely. Limited government. Government protects the rights of the citizens and maintains orderly environment. So there is a role that the government plays, but it's not a big role. It just creates laws and things like that to protect the citizen. As opposed to the communists now, they own the private citizen. They own your property. They dictate the market for you. So they're not working in your self-interest. They're just giving you an interest that they want to have you in doing. See what I mean? Now, I want to go into some of the rules or regulations that we have in the society. I had it yesterday. Laws in a I was looking it up yesterday. No. All right, brother. Have a good one. But anyway, my whole point of why I'm doing this is to show black folks how Marxism got us into a lot of your pro-black organizations, and why America targeted a lot of those organizations. Now, two things can be true at the same time. Was America being racist in those times in the 1960s and the 80s? Yes. But at the same time, because you guys were saying Marxism and you guys were saying communism, you were also a threat to capitalism. So you was attacked. It was like a double-edged sword. At one point, in one breath, you had racists in society, and in the next breath, you were preaching communism and capitalism. I mean, communism and Marxism, which is anti-capitalism. And I just read to you how those are anti-capitalism. Communism, Marxism, socialism is meant to overthrow capitalism and eliminate that structure. So, of course, in a capitalist society, no matter if you're white, black, or blue, if you're saying something that's going against my organization, of course I'm going to view you as a threat, especially if my organization is what's pushing me forward and my economy forward. And you want to eliminate that. And at the same time, you had racist people that did not like black folks. So you're under a double-edged sword. And then now, because Marxism at its base structure is to eliminate what, from Karl Marx's point of view, is that capitalism is oppressing the working class. They can just rearrange that and say that capitalism under white people is oppressing the working class, which is black people. And then now black people, and it has a revolutionary, rebellious thing to it, because it's rebelling against something else. So because it has that rebellious kind of framework to it, black people find it appealing because A, it's helping black folks to free themselves from the oppressive white people. The problem with that is now you're using a Marxist principle to rebel against white people and capitalism. And again, capitalism is not attached to white or black. Capitalism is just a structure, right? That if you go back to Africa, you studied a lot of the things in Africa, Africans practice capitalism. Just go research certain nations in Africa and how their government was structured, right? And I'm talking about pre-colonialism, pre-European face over there. Racism, capitalism, and slavery. In his most important work, Marx states that labor in white skin cannot emancipate itself where it is branded in a black skin. Despite attempts by political intellectual groups to deny Marx and Engels' uncompromising stance against racism. See what I'm saying? So this is how Marx is using racism and attaching it to his movement, and then attaching racism to capitalism. That's how that's being done. And then now if you look at Soviet Union and how Stalin used it, Stalin used socialism and capitalism. I mean, socialism and communism. Stalin did some horrific shit over there with the Soviet Union. And I'm not going to go to that history now, but it was crazy. Listen to this. Marxism explains racism is an ideology that emerged to justify and rationalize one of the greatest atrocities in the history of mankind, and identifies it as one of the fundamental pillars of primitive capital accumulation. The enslavement and trade of more than 11 million human beings to work on the plantation of the Americas and the Caribbean. This is counter-perspective to idealistic conceptions that view racism as an ideology that has always existed and is intrinsic to human nature, or as an idea that emerged out of nowhere, dissociated from its material foundation. Without recognition of the fundamental aspect, it is impossible to have scientific view about the development of racism or capitalism itself, or of capitalism itself, as Eric Williams writes in his classic work, Capitalism and Slavery. Look how they're linking capitalism with slavery. So this is why black folks have been conditioned to view capitalism as something that's enslaving them. It can't be linked to slavery because Karl Marx is a German dude that was critiquing other white people. So it can't be. So this is what's funny about this. Karl Marx, a European German dude, was critiquing other Europeans with capitalism during the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution took place in Europe, with Europeans at a higher class than other Europeans. And the Europeans of the working class being oppressed by Europeans of the higher class. That's what that was. So you can't say that it's racism. Right? But it's linking or making capitalism synonymous with racism is synonymous with slavery. But guess what? They got those 11 million slaves from Africans in Western Africa that was of a higher class, enslaving other Africans way before European face touched Africa. Keep that in mind. You had Western Africans enslaving other Africans, selling slaves to Portuguese and other places way before European face ever touched Africa. So you can't say that capitalism is racism. And you can have a capitalist society without slavery and racism. If that wasn't the case, how come when Asians come from China, Japan, or Korea, and they come to America and they adjust to capitalism, their average earning income surpasses that of white people? Think about that. Slavery was not born of racism. Rather, racism was a consequence of slavery. The reason was economic, not racial. The features of the man, his hair color, and his dentifrice was what? I'm not even going to say that word. His subhuman characteristics was widely pleaded, where only the latter rationalization to justify a simple economic fact. The colonies needed labor and was ordered to Negro. Labor because it was the cheapest and the best. So let's look at that line. Slavery was not what you call racist. It was based on an economic thing. As I said, you had Western Africans enslaving other Africans, and you had the Moors that were in Europe, or the Arabs, who also enslaved blacks, enslaved each other. You had Europeans that enslaved each other for the same economic reasons. Slave labor, right? You even had blacks in America who were what you call free Negroes that were also enslaving other blacks. Go look up that. And that was on the basis of economic growth. Not really against, I hate you because of your skin. It was because of, I need labor. And it was cheap labor. Sort of like with the Mexicans today. Only thing with the Mexicans today is that they're smart enough to know, hey, you're going to pay me. Right? So I want to ask, did those Europeans that believed in socialism or Marxism or communism, I want to know if they enslaved any blacks too. Because if they had black slaves, then they'd be hypocrite to their own argument. Right? And the Democrats, who are leftists and socialists, they were terrorizing other blacks who were voting Republican. You had blacks that were conservative and Republican, and you had Democrats who were leftists and socialists at the time. That's a question that needs to be asked. And black people need to ask that question. The Democrats who were socialists and left during Jim Crow were terrorizing you and commit acts of domestic terrorism upon you when you were Republican, conservative, and capitalist. Ask yourself why. And then why are they now linking with you today and trying to push communist Marxism on you if they was also enslaving you? Right? Williams describes the role of slavery played in the process of primitive accumulation, focused on the relationship between slave trade and industrial development in England. In its imperialist phase, the era of crisis, wars, and revolution, the relationship between racism and capitalism was reinforced. It is no coincidence that theories of scientific racism became more fully developed as nation-states played a decisive role in combining racism and capitalism to increase exploitation, precisely when the African continent was occupied and divided up among European powers. That is Africa's fault, because Africa, you were enslaving your own people, fighting amongst each other, and you let them Europeans come in there and whoop your ass and take over your country. So that's Africa's fault. That's why a lot of times I don't want to hear a Nigerian or Ghanaian talk shit about Black Americans, because Black Americans are trying to fight for all Caribbean Blacks, for that matter. I don't like it when African niggas talk shit about Caribbean Blacks or Black Americans, because you African niggas let them Europeans whoop your ass, divide your country with bricks, and enslave you and beat you up. You let the Arabs come in there and fuck you up, and you let the Europeans come over there and fuck you up. Caribbean Blacks and Black Americans have fought for their freedom. You didn't fight for yours. So you African niggas from Sudan, like Fresh and Fit, need to shut the fuck up. Serious business. At least, regardless of what you want to say, Caribbean Blacks and Black Americans, we fought for our freedoms. When you said soon these niggas gonna fight for your freedoms over there. Anyway. Slavery was not so now that's the thing with capitalism now, right? Is that because it's looking for labor, cheap labor, it could look as being oppressive towards the working class or the labor class, right? The thing is now, if you're a person in the working class and you can find a way to produce something and now raise your class status from working class to middle class to high class, you could put yourself in a position of power too, right? So now this form of capitalism right here, you can regulate it, which we're doing now in America. There's certain regulations in America that protect the private citizen from capitalism becoming haywire and causing issues. And like I said to white people, this is where your racism in America has caused Black people to go more towards communism and Marxism. Because now, instead of you allowing Black folks to participate in capitalism, you're now preventing them from participating in it. So now they're looking at capitalism as white supremacy and racism. And now they turn into Karl Marx, and they turn into communism, and they turn into socialism, because it's like they advertise themselves as overthrowing capitalism, overthrowing white people, and eliminating that struggle. Whereas opposed to capitalism, you have to be a certain class and you have to compete. So now, you talking about isms and schisms. So here's how we gonna go. If you don't like isms and schisms, you should have never joined the damn chat. I dissect the isms and the schisms over here. If you don't like isms and schisms, you could dip. Why unproductive? So see, this is the problem with liberalism and leftism. It creates people like Russ over there. Let me just do it this way. Hold on, I'm over here now. I'm gonna do it this way. What you mean? What I mean? What you mean by ism schism? Are you mocking what I'm saying, or are you drawing in the topic? For those coming into the chat, if you're on the channel, let me explain this one more time. This channel, you don't favor the region. Can y'all type correctly so I can understand what y'all are saying? What is eagle or bear? What are you talking about? Eagle, bear, dragon. I don't know what that is. You talking about European? You talking about China, America, or Russia? Because I know the dragon is Chinese, eagle is America, and bear is Russia, I think, from my knowledge. But I don't know, what does that have to do with what I'm talking about. Okay. Well, guess what? If you're in America, you have to bow down to the eagle. If you're in Russia, you got to bow down to the bear. If you're in China, you got to bow down to the tiger. You have to bow down to the dragon. This is how that goes. Wherever you are, whether it be the eagle, the bear, or the dragon, you have to submit to their rules and their laws. And right now, I think the eagle is the best. Because of capitalism, the eagle soars above and high above the bear and the motherfucking dragon. One thing we got to worry about is that dragon over here with the eagle. So I'm saying. We don't got to worry about the bear because he's on the ground. All right? But anyway. Hold on. But the Cold War, Soviet Union, was communism and socialism. And look how that turned out over there for the Russians. All right? With Stalin and them. I realize that all the European nations that are under socialism or communism, they have some mad, angry dictator that wants to destroy the world and overthrow the world, and then now enslaves their people and damages their own people in that process. Why should America have that over here, right? And why should America allow people with that type of thinking to be over here? And that's the black people as well. Right? Now, with capitalism, white people in America, you're going to have, well, this is between man and man. White men and black men got to sit down around the table and y'all need to talk, right? White folks, you got to admit your sins to the church. Because you've been oppressing black folks and black men with racism, it forced black men to go run towards Marxism and communism, because communism and Marxism has a idea that it's going to rebel against capitalism. So that's going to be appealing to the slave that you was oppressing during Jim Crow, during the 80s and the 90s. See what I'm saying? As opposed to now allowing black folks to participate in capitalism, in the free market, allow them to have economic growth and have power for themselves, right? They wouldn't need Marxism or communism. And they wouldn't be a threat to you because they're able to take care of themselves with their own economic growth. See what I'm saying? And then now, you'll take power out of the white people who are Marxists, who are communists, who are all these things. You take the power out of their hands because they will not be able to use black folks to help their causes, which is what happened during the election. You had a lot of Marxist white people, a lot of communistic white people that was using black folks' struggle, using black folks to give them power, to help them. Right? This is why this is the black folks. This is why the Democrats want black folks to struggle. This is why they preach Marxism to you. Because as long as black folks are in this struggle thing and they're not able to do for self, they're not able to get any economic growth, you will continue to need the Democrats. And the Democrats will keep on using you as cannon fodder to fight for their struggles. Right? Now, wow. Marxist Internet Archive. History Archive, U.S. Black Liberation. Like I said, so Marxism, what's going on? Oh, you're done, or whatever. So Black Liberation, they provide art. So that's what I'm saying. Because the nature of capitalism and conservatism is, right, they're not going to give you shit. You have to go work and go get it. Right? The nature of communism or the nature of Marxism or socialism is they give you free stuff. And because they give you free stuff, they can take away that stuff from you. But now, because of the nature of conservatism and capitalism, because you can get your own shit, you don't need anybody to give you nothing. That is the benefit of having a free market where you can control your outcome or the production of your outcome. Nobody controls that for you. Nobody dictates that for you. You dictate that. Which capitalism and conservatism, if you look at how nature is, it's the same thing. No, I don't see that as that. Because now if the dragon and the bear are communism and the eagle is capitalism, then they're diametrically opposed. They have different ideologies. Now, if you say they're working together to create world peace, then I can agree with you with that, right? The eagle might work with the dragon to not go to war with each other or to have certain trade goods to create a certain economy. Same thing with the bear, right? You say they work together. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with them working together, right? If you know, don't listen to me, boy. Not you. Listen to me. You on my channel. Right? If they were working together, then how come if Kamala Harris won, they were going to go to war with each other? When Donald Trump won, and you saw the dragon, the eagle, the bear, the Arabic snow, I wonder what they call the Iran. What animal would you use for Iran? If the bear, the eagle, and the dragon working together, how come when Donald Trump became president, you saw all the enemies talking about, okay, we don't want to fight? Don't get it twisted. When you saw Iran, China, and Russia come up and say, oh, listen, Donald Trump won, we ain't going to fight nobody. Those were the enemies that wanted to take over America. Let me say that again. When Donald Trump won, and you saw the dragon, the eagle, and the bears, and the crocodiles, and the other animals of the animal kingdom pop up and tell Donald Trump, we don't want to fight, those were America's enemies that got revealed. So if they're working together, why were they about to fight if Kamala Harris won? It ain't about being stubborn. I believe in my opinion. What do you mean Cold War tactics? What's a Cold War tactic? Hey, you see what I'm talking about? It's always something. It's always yes, right. So take it like this, right? Russia is socialist or communist. China's communist. A lot of those other countries are communists, right? I don't know what Iran's political thing is. I think with Iran, they're more Arab. So with Iran or those places like Saudi Arabia, it's more of a religious fight with America, Christianity versus Islam, right? So if you have Marxist agendas within America fighting America itself, and then you have Marxist agendas outside of itself fighting America, look how America would have lost that fight if Kamala Harris won. And Kamala Harris is a Marxist. Her father was a Marxist. So I don't know how you're telling me that they're working together when they have different ideologies and they were about to go to war with each other, right? So to the pro-blacks, and I remember would the eagle, dragon, and bear keep their hands clean? The poor suffer, Korean War, Vietnam War, etc., Salvador, Nicaragua, the contrast. Cambodia, etc., etc., etc. Very keep their hands clean. Okay, but that's them. What I don't get. Okay, they may oppress and go to war with lesser countries, but they still fight each other. So if you're telling me that the eagle, dragon, and the bear are big bullies of the world, I can agree to that. I could see your point, right? But this is why Donald Trump is saying no new wars, because I believe that America should stay out of everybody's business, and I believe Russia and China should stay out of everybody's business. So I do agree with your point that the dragon, the eagle, and the bear shouldn't be messing with other countries and people. They should be minding their businesses and focus on having healthy trades amongst other people, other nationalities. So I do agree with your point. But that still doesn't take away from my point that the fact that the eagle, the dragon, and the bear don't like each other. The dragon flies and breathes fire in the sky. The eagle soars above, and the bear is on ground. You see what I'm saying? They still fight each other. They might cause problems for other people, but they still don't like each other. They're competing against each other. And of course, they're going to have a certain level of what you call working together. Because now you have certain trade agreements with people, right? You have to work together to not go to war with each other, like what Donald Trump is trying to do now. This is why people across the world wanted Donald Trump to become back in power, because when it was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris over there, everybody was at war. See what I'm saying? So this is what Donald Trump is saying now with the eagle now. Yeah, but you're talking about you're talking about the Cold War. That's an old era. Just like the 1960s and shit. We in 2024. So like the tactics are not the same, my friend. It's different. Or whatever. I'm going to ignore you now. I'll go back to the point. So that's because of Korea. Korea split because of Korea. Cuba happened because of Cuba. What's your point? Cuba happened because of Cuba with their communism. The Cuban people keep fleeing Cuba to come to America because Cuba, with their communist government, are oppressing their people. Yeah, but that's because of El Salvador. No, I don't get it. You're right. No, I understand what you're talking about with the Vietnam War and Cambodia and America going over there. But you got to remember, before America got over there, it was the French fighting Cambodia. It was China was fighting Cambodia. It was various other countries before the Eagle got there that was fucking with Cambodia and Vietnam. Congo was being fucked with by what do you call them people? Polish. It was being fucked with by Poland. It was being fucked with by European countries who were communist. Which further gets to my point. Places in Africa, like the Congo, like Cambodia and Vietnam, they were all being messed with by European countries who were communists or socialists. So I understand what you're saying. But I want to get back to my point. This is how a lot of communism and Marxist ideas infected the black community, because you had a lot of socialism and Marxism linking itself with black liberation. And now, because you have to think about it, the slave force in America outnumbered white people. Same thing with the Caribbean. The black slaves in the Caribbean and the black slaves within America, they outnumbered white people, right? So what happened? If Karl Marx, who's white people, or other white people who are Marxism, can utilize the workforce of black people within the diaspora, they can overthrow capitalism with it. Then they can use black folks to overthrow capitalism with it. The problem with that now is that you got to keep black folks in a state of struggle and victimhood, right? Now, being a victim is different from being a victim from victimhood. Victimhood is now staying in that state of being a victim to continue to not improve or progress yourself. Being a victim now is that acknowledging that something happened to me, somebody did something to me, right? And there needs to be retribution for that. Being in victimhood now, you keep yourself in that state. You don't raise up, you don't get better, you don't get stronger. You stay there. So now, in order for Marxism and socialism to continue to use black folks now, right? They have to keep black folks in a state of victimhood. And it gives the white people, the Democrats who are socialists, power over them. And then now they give them free bread, free circus, free all these things. Instead of now black folks going to go get it for themselves, which a lot of Nation of Islam and Marcus Garvey, they talked about doing for self, creating your own economy, building your own nation, which runs along the lines of conservatism, which is why probably a lot of people did not like the Nation of Islam and did not like Marcus Garvey, because they preach separation from white people, whether they be liberal. And then Malcolm X talked about how dangerous the liberals are, right? Which I'm going to go into the next segment, right? We're going to look up the Marxist civil rights leaders. Marxist civil rights leaders. Now, we're not going to front like there were not good things that were being born from the Marxist things, but they could have been, so for instance, Black Panther Party, they were socialists, but they came up with the breakfast program that you call EBT, or what you call SNAP. That was from the Black Panther Party. That could have been done under capitalism, but you could have programmed that's going to now benefit the working class, and is now going to benefit older folks, like with Social Security, right? Let's go. Civil rights leaders. Who were Marxist? Political activists, radical and Marxists. Giselle, I don't know how to say her name. A political human. This is a female, right? So I recognize that a lot of women are either Marxist, socialist, or communist. Let me look up Margaret Sanger right quick. Margaret Sanger. Socialism. Let me find out. Now, don't get it twisted. I see Marxism as an enemy to black folks' progress. Basically, right? No, but for me, I think capitalism is better for black people. It's actually better for black people. Black people just have to learn how to play the game, right? Margaret Sanger was a socialist who was involved in the Women's Committee of New York chapter of the Socialist Party. However, she eventually moved away from socialist movement and became a progressive. Let me look up what a progressive is. Like, they have so many names to mask socialism and communism, it's not funny. I mean, you could say that about religion. Religion is an ism schism. But watch this though. You have to create some kind of structure to keep human beings in line, because human beings are chaotic. So I get it what you're talking about with isms, schisms, ideologies, and they provide arms and watch it play. Those are just evil human beings that need to be put in check. I get it that you're Rasta, but hold on though. Hold on. So now you told me who you is. You say you're a Rastafari, right? What divided Jamaica? Jamaica, JLP, which is capitalist or conservative, versus PNP, who was left or liberal, divided Jamaica. But doesn't Rastafari have certain structures and rules on how you have to govern yourself, even though you're spiritual? Don't you have 12 tribe, Bubba, Nyabingi, and different groups in Rastafarianism that provide structure and rules on how you have to govern yourself and treat yourselves? Answer that question. What's two kingdoms? I don't know what you mean, brother. Aggressive. You see, the problem with Jamaica is that Jamaica, it was coming up from under the British Crown. So that's Jamaica's problem. Jamaica, and because it was born out of it was a third world country. So now when you have two governments just now starting, one being capitalist and you have to explain what you mean, brother. Is being what's a progressive? Because the whole reason why progressive is just another way of saying socialist. So progressive is just another way of saying socialist. You're a socialist. So Margaret Sanger, she was once upon a time a socialist, and then she became a progressive. Same shit, right? And Margaret Sanger, she came up with the Negro Project or Planned Parenthood with the yeah, but regardless, there's gonna be a government. You're gonna have governments, right? So you're talking about two governments since the beginning of time, right? Government and ex-government. Daniel 4 Kings. So you're talking about the Bible, right? Well, God has always placed man. Well, I'm saying, see, you talking about some Bible stuff, and I ain't been studying my Bible lately. But from what you're saying, you're talking about two different governments, and I think Daniel 4 government. I think you're talking about something from the Bible. So that's biblical stuff. Right? I haven't studied. I haven't been. You talk about a spiritual government, but hold on. Nevertheless, the Rastafarian communities over there, don't they still have rules to govern themselves? Nevertheless, they still have to govern themselves, right? But no, let me not get distracted. So Margaret Sanger came up with the Negro Project, which then transitioned to being called Planned Parenthood. And that specific purpose was to eliminate black folks. And she referred to black folks as weeds. Right? Right? So Margaret Sanger being a socialist, right? How is that socialism supposed to be a friend to black folks? If Margaret Sanger, a socialist, came up with a program to wipe you out. And as a result of that Planned Parenthood or Negro Project, 20 million blacks have got 20 million black folks have been deleted, or 20 million black babies have gotten deleted since the inception of Planned Parenthood. So how could Marxism or socialism be a benefit to black folks? This is why black folks fight for a lot of Planned Parenthood, a lot of other things. This is how socialism is able to introduce black folks to things that end up becoming the enemy or the direct threat to black liberation. Planned Parenthood is not black liberation. Planned Parenthood is black annihilation. A lot of the programs that liberals present or give to black people goes against black liberation, really. And this is why it's difficult to get black folks away from Marxist principles, away from socialism. Okay, so Baba Shanti is a government. So you still got rules and guidelines and structures that y'all got to follow amongst the women and the men, right? Okay, then. So, and tomorrow I'm going to do a topic of how Islam preached feminism and got black people to become slaves or subordinate to women. We're going to go into that in tomorrow's topic, and I can't wait for that one. So, let me read off some of your leaders. Giselle Rabishla, I don't know how to say her name. So this is a black woman, a political and human rights activist and councilwoman. Was born Marie Giselle Amy, so she sounds to be Creole or Haitian, on May 7, 1929, in Madagascar. Oh, so she's a French. Oh, she's from the French. Okay. So this is a person, she's a French person. Institute of the Black World, IBW, was a collective black intellectual think tank spearheaded by Vincent Herding, chair of history and sociology at Spelman College, Stephen Henderson, chair of English at Morehouse College, and independent scholar William Strickland from 1969 to 1983. Rashid Story. So this person is called Rashid Story, factory worker and communist organizer, was born February 21st, 1936 in Philadelphia. Michael, damn, so this person is a black Russian. Well, he's Ethiopian. Howard Fuller, civil rights and education activist, was born January 14, 1941. Shiver, Louisiana. So he's born in Louisiana. All right. I'm going to post this article in the chat so you guys can look that up. Look these things up for yourself. Doxy Alfonso Lewis Alexander Wilkinson, communist Marxist professor, author, editor, and union leader. You know, a lot of those workers' labor unions, a lot of them have Marxist communist origins. See now the thing with the unions, when you have a union in America, right? You don't choose if you want to be part of that union. As soon as you sign on to that contract to join that union, to join that job, you're kind of forced to be part of their labor union. And then now they can take what you call tithes from you. So that union, so on top of you being taxed by the government, the union takes their share. So it's like you don't have a choice whether you want to be part of that union or not, which is crazy. The black post. So that link I posted into the chat, that gives you a list of people who are Marxists or communists. And look at the black people that was in there. And funny enough, a lot of the women were hip to Marxism and communism. Langston Hughes' visit to the Soviet Union. Oh shit. Let me look at some more stuff. Martin Luther King. Oh, look at this one. Why did FBA saw Martin Luther King? My thing is, if you see both sides, if you're seeing both sides as a problem, why join the leftists? So if you're saying to me, Ross, that the capitalists and the socialists are bad, why choose the socialists if you're not going to choose the capitalists if you see both of them as a problem? See, that's the common thing with black people. If you identify a thing or one thing as a problem, so you're saying the line represents the Rasta government, and I'm pretty sure you guys are going to have a structure in it. Hold on. But we're not talking about Rastafari. We're talking about America right now. Because when you come into America, you have to abide by the law of the land. All right? Among civil rights leaders. So let me read this one. Early 1962, Attorney General Robert Kennedy approved a request from FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover to install wiretaps on the home and office of New York City-based lawyer named Stanley David Livingston. According to the FBI informant, Livingston was a member of the Communist Party. They believed he was now wielding influence in different ways as top advisor to the nation's most prominent civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King. As King's fame and stature grew over the next several years, the FBI intensified its surveillance of him under its domestic counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, arguing it was a matter of national security. With the Bureau's relentless scrutiny of King's failure to reveal any communist leanings, it did turn up evidence of King's extramarital affairs. Damn. Hoover and his agents then tried to leverage that information not only to discredit and weaken King as a leader of the civil rights movement, but blackmail him into taking his own life. Hoover built his nearly 5-decade FBI career on fighting perceived threat of communism. His determined efforts to root out suspected sympathizers during the first Red Scare helped cement his metric rise to lead the FBI in 1924. And at just 29 years old, with the dawn of the Cold War, he redacted his efforts to investigate communists and others whom he considered potential enemies of the United States, seeing red in among other places. Hollywood labor unions and creative class. By the time of his death in 1972, Hoover had amassed confidential files on an impressive array of public figures from Charlie Chaplin to Muhammad Ali and Eleanor Roosevelt. Damn. Because the CPUSA has supported, this is the Communist Party of the USA, has supported greater civil rights for Black Americans as far back as the 1930s, Hoover was not alone in viewing the emerging civil rights movement of the 1950s as susceptible to communist influence. The FBI first took notice of King in 1955 when a young minister played a leading role in the Montgomery bus boycott. So, this is how a lot of left-wing groups invaded, or invaded a lot of those civil rights programs, because those communist parties just hijacked a lot of the civil rights struggles, a lot of the boycotts, a lot of these things to help themselves overthrow capitalists or the U.S. government in America. And this is why the civil rights movements was viewed as a threat, right? And the only way those civil rights movements, like what you see with Black Lives Matter and a lot of the left-leaning groups like LGBT, was able to gain power was because the Democrats were in power. This is why Donald Trump, this is why the black community is so upset with Donald Trump, because a lot of the black community is Marxist. A lot of those black programs, a lot of those black organizations like Black Lives Matter, like the Civil Rights Movement, like DEI and all these things, they were being funded by communism, Marxism, and socialism. And black community have a lot of socialist ideas. And because Donald Trump won and he's going to enforce capitalism now, black folks are upset because a lot of their leftist programs are going to be shut down. Which now, if you're a black person and you're a conservative, especially if you're a black male, Donald Trump will be in benefit to you, because now you'll be able to get jobs on a free market, set up your businesses, and be able to gain economic growth. And you won't need the Democratic left to give you anything, because you can do for yourself, which is what the Nation of Islam preaches. See, if black folks were doing for self and detaching from the Democratic government, you wouldn't have to worry about Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, because you'd have a power or economic base with yourself. Instead of having to rely on a Democrat or a liberal and then have to join their stupid groups like LGBT or whatever group, or LGBT community, or whatever they call themselves, you wouldn't have to be subjected to their programming. You would have to be integrated with them and then become poisoned like them. Everything that the Communist Party was doing for black folks, the Capitalist Party could have done for black folks, could have provided for black folks. That's what the Republican Party was doing. A little bit. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Rasta government, none of them government. I'm talking about this thing. Yeah, but this is the thing. Black folks are in America. So you have to choose a government or a leader that's going to benefit you, so you can create your own destiny. It's called guerrilla warfare. And right now, black culture, whether it be Jamaica, the diaspora, or America, y'all have not set up your base. You still are subjected to whatever president is in power, whatever local government is in power. So long as you have leftist, communist, white people influencing you to do stupid stuff and influencing you to be broke and not to have an economy, or your economy based upon. So now thought comes to mind. So as long as black folks are going to be Marxist or socialist, you're only going to be slave to the Democrats, because you're only going to go as far as where the Democratic left, who are Europeans or white people, want you to go, because they're determining your market value. They're giving you stuff. So you're only going to go as far as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the left, wants you to go. But as opposed to when you're joining the Republican Party, you can go as far as you want to go. You cannot look at white people who are conservative or Republican as a threat to you. They may be racist towards you, but they're not going to bother you, because you're doing for yourself. The Democratic left, yes, they're racist for you, but they seek to control you, as opposed to the Republican Party. They may be racist towards you or really indifferent towards you, but they're not trying to control you. They're trying to stick to themselves, so long as you don't bother them. See what I'm saying? So it's better for black folks to pick a side where it's going to benefit you long enough so you can get an economic base and power. Because look, Marcus Garvey wasn't talking about trying to overthrow America's government or capitalist society. He was actually preaching, doing for his black people to do for them damn self and create their own power structure, their own government. Which is not what because W.E.D. Du Bois, he was a leftist, he was a communist. Let me show you. NAACP, those are communists. Let me type it up here. Let me go into it. W.E.D. Bois. Yes. So now you guys know why America or the FBI targeted a lot of those pro-black civil rights leaders, because A, they were black, yes, but two, they were communists. Yeah, I have a WhatsApp, but I don't want nobody calling me like that. The party has generally been described as communist by historians. Hold on. W.E.D. Boys. The thing is, I'm a private person. Oh, here it is. W.E. Du Bois. Hold on. Du Bois, who considered himself a socialist, also published articles in favor of unionized labor. Although he called out union leaders for barring black membership, under Du Bois' guidance, the journal attracted a wide readership, reaching 100,000 in 1920, and drew many supporters to the NAACP. W.E.D. Du Bois joins the Communist Party. Let me type this up. Yeah, I'm educated because I research things, but I have my biases and I have my sides that I pick. I'm going to pick capitalism and Republicans all day. And I'm going to say fuck communism and fuck socialism. Because all socialism is no. I don't want to hear Republicans and Democrats are the same shit. I don't want to hear that crap. This election in America showcases that they're different. Fuck Marxism, fuck communism, and fuck socialism. It's no good for black people. Just saying. Soldiers to who? See, I'm not the Negro that's just going to follow any movement. You know what I'm saying? What you mean you're good for anybody? Hold on. Pause this up ahead. Bro. Ross, I'll mess with you. You cool people as it seems. But I'm a soldier to the truth and what's right. Not to anybody, group, or organization. Because every group and organization has its BS. You got to help yourself. So let me read this right here. I'm not tired of that argument that Democrats and man. All right, listen. Freedom from what? Even if you talk about Christ, your Christian religion gives you rules and regulations to follow. That's the thing with human beings. Like, human beings want to be free to be chaos. But when it comes to them following a certain structure, if the structure doesn't align with a human being's chaos, they think it's bad. So W.E. Du Bois was a communist. And what his quote is saying, communism will triumph. I want to help bring that day. This is W.E. Du Bois. This is why the black community has so many flipping problems. And this is why the black community love being broke and struggling. Because in order for you to be a communist, you have to be part of the struggling working class. You have to be the working class losers of society to be a communist. Because the idea of Karl Marx is that if you're part of the working class, you're to overthrow that capitalist government and make everything equal. Whereas opposed to capitalism under a Republican form of government, You have to do for yourself and get your own shit. And you won't need Marxism. No. So I put that in there. I wonder if this is why W.E. Du Bois did not like Marcus Garvey. Let me look up that. Was Marcus Garvey a socialist? Yeah, here it is. I should put Marxist. Let me see. Which I doubt. I doubt Marcus Garvey. I doubt Marcus Garvey was a socialist or a communist because he talked about doing for yourself, which is conservatism. Conservatism. No, so it's saying that Garvey was not a socialist himself or a communist himself. But it's saying, according to this, no, but see, I have to help myself. Let me see this. Marcus Garvey and the Socialists. When in our predecessor's paper, let me get to the meat of the matter. It was easy to write off Garvey's connection to the left based on his avowedly bourgeoisie outlook. The fact he himself was a capitalist, and that fundamentally for him the division in society was on one of race. So it's saying that Garvey himself was a capitalist, which is probably what the real rift between him. What? Oh, thank you, Ross. Hey, remember, when you come to my house or my channel, you respect my house and my channel and what I want to speak about. Don't speak about nothing else but what I want to talk about. You feel me? Unless I permit it. This is the thing about masculinity and manhood that a lot of black people seem not to forget because you allow. Marx is not actually egalitarian. Really? Because based upon what he's Marx's preachment, his thing is to overthrow the capitalist society and make everything equal. Well, hold on. You might be right. Hold on. Let me look up Marcus Garvey thing first, right? Oh shit. So it says that when Marcus Garvey wrote from prison, he is quoted being saying the Negro should keep shy of the communism or the Workers' Party of America. Let me see this. So, as if you know Marcus Garvey's history, it says that he was born in 1887 to a family that was middle class, but struggling due to legal difficulties. Garvey became a printer apprentice, moving to Kingston and became a foreman. During the early strike, he sided with the workers. That was the last time he backed a strike, at least explicitly. He then lost his job, became a delusion with Jamaica, and did a number of jobs, mostly in the fruit industry across Latin America. He started publishing a paper and newsletter there. He was increasingly angered by the treatment of him and other workers by the United Fruit Company. He abandoned Latin America at first for London. While in the UK, he headed to Speaker's Corner to hear arguments from Pan-Africanists and socialist religious preachers. Garvey was a lifelong Roman Catholic and others. He made the acquaintance of Hussein Muhammad Ali, an early Pan-Africanist. He worked for his magazine and spent time studying at Brickbeck and reading the British Museum. It was there he read Booker T. Washington's Up from Slavery and decided he wanted to meet him. Oh, he met a couple. Let me see this. Hmm. So from what I'm getting, so let me go into this. Let's talk about Booker T. Washington out here. At first, Garvey hoped to follow the lead of Booker T. Washington instead of a college or university. The UNI was loyal to the British Empire, going so far as to support the call for more Jamaicans to sign up to fight in World War One. He angered many Jamaican blacks with a condescending attitude and denouncing colored men, as well as fueling his own ego within his own competition, seeking patronage from the white elite in Jamaica. Garvey was quite deliberate when he chose the name Universal Negro Improvement Association. In Jamaica, a majority of black workers were governed by a small white elite. It was for Jamaica's continuing loyalty to the British Empire. Another layer of mixed race, so-called quadroons and octoroons, alongside Chinese traders and Middle Eastern tailors, acted as kind of middle class. No, he did say that. Now you gonna make me look that up. Did Karl Marx believe in equality? See, that's the problem with Karl Marx, because Karl Marx, his shit was theory, and it wasn't even a completed theory. And then now everybody's interpreting what Karl Marx said. That's why there's different. That's why That's why there's so. That's why there's different versions of Marxism and socialism or communism. So I'm gonna read this here, right? While Karl Marx is often associated with the idea of equality, his actual view was more nuanced. He believed that true equality could only be achieved by abolishing class system, particularly capitalism, and that focusing on achieving equality within a capitalist system was essentially meaningless, as it would perpetuate exploitation of the working class. Therefore, he prioritized the concept of class and society over individual equality. Oh, as it exists under capitalism. I see what you mean. Class conflict over individual equality. Marx argued that the primary issue was not individual equality, but the systematic inequality created by class structures under capitalism, where the ruling class exploits the working class. So it wasn't that he was for equality of individuals. It was that he didn't like the fact that there was a ruling class over the working class. Oh shit. Oh shit. So he just wanted the working class to be over the ruling class. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Let me read this here. Equality in a communist society. Marx believed that true equality would only be possible in a communist society where the means of production are collectively owned and people contribute according to their abilities and receive according to their needs. But you know what? Under a communist society, there are still people, there's still a government that is in control of the production of the people. So in a communist society, that's really not equality. Yeah, but even though he wanted to end exploitation, the communist is is an exploitation. A communist regime is exploiting people because that communist regime is still in ownership of the production of what the people produce. See what I'm saying? I see what you're saying. So Karl Marx basically, he didn't like the fact that he didn't like a capitalist society being equal. He didn't see equality under a capitalist society. But if you think about it, he wanted the working class to overthrow capitalists. He wanted to eliminate class. I don't know how to explain it properly. Uh-huh. Communism will be worldwide. I think that's what the basis of that New World Order thing was, right? Yeah, it's difficult to put in words. Like, I get what you're saying. Because Karl Marx, he was saying there was because of uneven distribution of wealth, leading to inequality between classes. Well, the reason why there's a uneven distribution of wealth is because the higher you put yourself on the class list, like say working class, middle class, uh, what's above middle class, ruling class or whatsoever, the more you produce, the more money you're gonna earn. So it's not like if you're in the working class, you're stuck at the working class. You could work because, like America, right? It has a healthy capitalism. What's healthy capitalism is that in America, there's rules and regulations that protect the private citizen and give the private citizen the opportunity to work himself into into the upper classes. So now, the upper you go in the class, the more you're earning for yourself. So of course, the distribution of wealth is going to be uneven because now if you're in the middle class, your wealth is determined upon your work, your output, your work output, your production output. So of course, your wealth is going to be higher than that of the working class. See what I'm saying? But shit, it is difficult to put in words. Because now, if he's saying that the working class is going to overthrow um, capitalism and eliminate class systems, then then now the working class is not going to be equal because now you're putting power into the working class, and now there's a government controlling the production output of that working. There's still a government over the working class, so that's still not equal. Shit, that is a good point. Equality of outcome. Marx did not see equality as a goal. Oh shit, hold on. I hope the brother's still in the chat. Does Marxism call for equality of outcome? Oh shit, I might have to pay for this crap. Hopefully I don't. These lines from Marx as he writes, the critique of the Gotha program, 1875, of a fundamental preposition. Human beings have unequal abilities and unequal needs. However, Marxism is often criticized by the likes of Dr. Jordan B. Patterson for its championing of equality outcome. This adherent tag arguably gives Marxism a stigma that is intensified by a collective right-wing obsession on the web. Oh, hold on. Let me see. So this is saying, while basic Marxist literature reveals that the accusation cannot be more preposterous, Marx never saw equality of outcome as a goal. If anything, he detests this bourgeoisie notion. Marx says, one worker is married, another is not. One has more children than the other, and so on and so forth. Thus, with an equal performance of labor and hence an equal in the social consumption fund, one will in fact receive more than another. One will be richer than another, and so on to so on. To avoid all these defects, right? Instead of being equal, would have to be unequal. Oh shit! This is a quote, a usurp taken from Karl Marx. Let me read this again. Remember, I said this before. Okay, so that's the problem, right? Marxists did not complete his ideology. He died before he completed it. So now it's left for everybody to interpret it. Because I did a live yesterday saying that it's impossible for everybody to be equal or to provide equal needs to everybody. Because some people have two kids, some people are taller, some people are fatter, some people have different sicknesses or ailments. So you can't provide, so people are unequal by nature. So it'll be difficult for you to have a system that provide things equally to everybody, right? And even if you're going to say communism and base the work output based upon people's abilities, some people are bigger and stronger. So they have abilities to get more work output than the weaker person. So even in the communist thing, the stronger and bigger person is still going to output more, and based upon his abilities, he's going to generate more stuff than the weaker person. You understand? So that's why, like socialism and the basis of being equal, it makes no sense. And it says it right here in this paragraph. One worker is married, and this is from Karl Marx, right? One worker is married, another is not. One has more children than another, and so on and so forth. Thus, with an equal performance of labor and hence an equal in the social consumption fund, one will in fact receive more than another. One will be richer than another, and so on. To avoid all these defects, right? Instead of being equal, one have to be unequal. So it's like he contradicts his own ideology with Karl Marx. So let me read this. Indeed, it is all about the specifics. What kind of equality do we crave for? Equality in one category inevitably brings inequality in another. People belong, and I just explained that, right? Uh, Equality in one category inevitably brings inequality in another. People belonging from different cultures will always be different. People with different skills cannot be made equal. Marx does not deny this. His notion of equality means the abolishing the I don't know how to say that word. He wants the abolish of class. In the lower stage of communism, he opines the society will still have remnants of capitalism. Only in the higher stage will the abolition of class happen. Is that the same shit with the Soviet Union? Because it sounds to me like with the Soviet Union, even though they were under Stalin, even though they were communists, they still had capitalist ideas. This is why you see China trying to transition from a communist party to a more capitalist party. It's the same thing with Japan, right? So it's like this is what's fucking up black people, black folks. This is what's confusing the black community. Because if you ask most black folks what's their ideology, in essence, they're going to tell you conservatism. But then they talk a lot of socialist shit. Oh, so they're state capitalists. But why do they preach themselves as communists? Oh, so when you say state capitalists, right? You're saying as what this is described as that. Oh, I see. So when you say state capitalists, are you saying that the state? Let me look that up. Look up what a state capitalist means. State capitalist. Because what I'm looking at it from is that the capitalists So that's the problem. So you're saying that the state capitalist is like they're in control of the bottom, is what you're saying. They're in control because with China now, the state has power over the wealth, the private property is public property. Is that what state capitalist is? Let me look this up. State capitalist. State capitalism. See, I was right. State capitalism is an economic system in which the state undertakes business and commercial economic activity and where the means of production are nationalized as state-owned enterprises. Holy shit. That's basically the idea of communism. State capitalism is an economic system in which the state uses to control the free market system to protect its political regime through the economic activities. This regime dominates the resource allocation mechanism and the resources to guarantee its persistence. Holy shit. Now, that's state capitalism. And I was right with my assumption, right? What's basic capitalism? So, listen. See, now I know where people are getting them mixed up. They're mixing up capitalism by itself versus state capitalism, where the state is in control of things. Whereas capitalism, the people are in control of things. Listen to what capitalism is. Capitalism, private ownership, individuals and business own capital goods, and the government does not own the means of production. State capitalism is something different. Free market, prices and distribution of goods are determined by supply and demand in the free market rather than by central planning, right? Central planning is basically the state capitalism or communism, where the central planning is done by that state. Or you know what state capitalism sounds like? It sounds like feudal Japan or feudal medieval Europe. That's what it sounds like. Feudalism. Go look up what feudalism is, right? Competition. Firms are free to enter and exit markets, which maximize social welfare. Limited government role. The government protects the rights of the private citizens and maintains an orderly environment that facilitates proper functioning of market. Right? So in other words, when you talk about the government protecting the rights of the citizens, that's like a construction worker having OSHA 30. OSHA 30 protects the worker from hazards, and it gives, certain protections to the construction worker on a hazardous workplace, right? Or stuff like labor laws, right? So let me look up capitalism and labor laws. Right, so in a capitalist system, oh shit. So now shit is being revealed. And a lot of dots are connecting in my brain. That's what the Democrats because the Democrats in America, they call themselves democratic socialism. That's what their achievement goal is. So that's what that New World Order stuff that they was preaching back in the I think the 90s to the 2000s was about, right? In the capitalist system, labor laws act as a regulatory framework that governs the relationship between employers and employee, aiming to balance the need for profit accumulation with the protection of workers' rights, essentially mediating the inherent conflict between capital owners and the laborers within a market economy, where employers seek to maximize profit by minimizing labor costs, while workers strive for fair wages and working conditions, right? Somebody yesterday tried to argue with me about living wages. Living wages is not the responsibility of the that corporation. You know what I'm saying? That's the responsibility of the worker himself, right? The corporation is not responsible for your health. You are. Right? Let me look up laws that regulate capitalism regulations. This regulations, not no damn theory. So you would be right. Karl Marx was not about equality. Because now if you have a state government or state capitalist and your end goal is communism in control of people, then that's not equality. And he acknowledged that equality doesn't exist. Bro, get Karl Marx and socialism and communism and get them the fuck up out of here. No. Black folks are not trying to be subordinate to nothing. You know what I'm saying? 400 years of that, plus Jim Crow, no. Black people, black community would be stupid to be communist. Stupid. And that's why you have a lot of black civil rights leaders. That's what they're trying to do. They're not trying to free black folks. They're trying to be in control of black folks. This is why a lot of rich black folks talk broke talk while they're rich. It's to keep the rest of the black people in a struggling position so that those richer black folks can keep making money off of them, so they can have power over them. And when black folks come out of that mindset now, right, that struggling mindset, they can have power over those, even white people, even other Asian groups. This is why black folks are not in the position that they're supposed to be in. There was like a list of laws there was some regulations that I was reading yesterday. How did I type it? Oof. How do I type it? Capitalism regulations. Bro, let me type this in. See, the problem with capitalism is not black anarchist. I'm gonna look that up. Yeah, but you see, the Industrial Revolution that took place in Europe, which is why a lot of the Europeans broke away from Great Britain to come over to America, right? Which is probably why I'm assuming that's why, right? But you got to understand, like with Britain, at that time you had a lot of greedy people during the industrial. So of course the workers are going to rebel against that. But Karl Marx's idea is like to overthrow capitalism, to put control and power into the worker, right? And then the problem with Karl Marx's idea is he died before he completed his ideology, and everybody just added shit to it. No, see, I understand why black folks distrust the government, right? Especially in America with what black folks have gone through. But that doesn't give you an excuse to now pick communism or Marxism. You can still distrust your government and play your role or learn how to play the game of capitalism and win. The Asians have been able to do that. The Asians have come from communist countries, come to America, adjusted in America, and their average earning income surpasses that of white people. What do you mean none of them work if it's working? Capitalism works. The only problem is that you got greedy people in the government, which is what Donald Trump is trying to clean up. The only reason why capitalism doesn't work is because you have socialists in the government trying to destroy it. That's why capitalism doesn't work. It's greedy people, greedy human beings, right? The structure of capitalism is perfect. The problem is when you have greedy human beings going unchecked. And then we have other people who are socialists getting powers in the government, like with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, using or integrating their own bullshit to mess up the structure of it. That's when it doesn't work, right? The government role in capitalism can include protecting the private rights, creating and protecting property rights, providing a stable money supply, regulating business activities, correcting market failures, promoting social welfare, providing public school and services, maintaining competition, redistributing income. And there were certain, I think the FDA is part of that too. You saying so you're saying that it's always going to cycle back to people revolting the capitalist system? No, you good, you good, you good. So you're saying I don't mind how to debate so long as you're being respectful. So I agree with I don't have an issue with people disagree with me, right? So you're saying that people revolting in a capitalist society is always going to go back to that, is what you're saying. Mm. Ooh. Um, laws, laws under oh, okay. I can see what you're saying, but then should we fall up under a communist system where now where now you have a greedy state that's in control of your private property? At least in a capitalism, you have greedy individuals that you could create laws to regulate them. Under a state, when all the power is within the state and your state controls your property, your distribution of wealth, if they get greedy, they can just come take your stuff from you. Listen, the thing is, when it comes to human beings, you're going to always have problems. The question is, are you a libertarian socialist? Okay, this is the problem, right? In the world that we live in, there's always going to be problems. The question is, which problems can we handle? Are we going to handle a problem where you go back to the days of Genghis Khan or back to the UK, for example, or with Australia that happened the other day, where it's under a constitutional. So let me explain this, right? Look what happened in Australia the other day, right? During the whole COVID pandemic, right? Where because they're under a constitutional monarchy where the state had the power, look what they were doing. They were going into people's places and kicking down and taking their children from them. You cannot do that over here in America under capitalist society where the individual can vote they can vote for their politicians. They can have the rights to bear arms to protect themselves. So now protect themselves, right? Right. So in American politics, well, let me explain it properly. Here in America, right, the individual as individuals, we can vote for our politicians. We can vote for our police chief. We have the power to vote with but see, but that's my thing. Problem with socialism and Karl Marx, right? Capitalism promotes that already. Karl Marx, if he's going to put the right cooperative, right? If Karl Marx was going to put the power of production in the hands of the workers, that's the same thing as in a capitalist society where um, private ownership is in the individual. It's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. Let me read this right here, right? Property law defines ownership of assets, which is a key part of class stratification. Employment contract law organizes the obligation of different types of workers. Corporate law maintains class stratification. Contract law, collateral law, and trust. Corporate and bankruptcy law transform assets into capital. State power. Law is a matter of state power, and contracting parties often submit to a single legal authority. Yeah, but then you don't think that if you put the power into the workers' production that they're going to not do the same thing? Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is with in America, right? But hold on, let me say this, right? See, as when you talk a state, like individual states have their own constitution, even though they have to bow down to the general constitution, which is the law of the land, right? But still, with a state, the people can vote for their mayor, their governor, their police chief, their councilman. Like in New York, we have borough presidents. So you have the borough presidents of Queens, Brooklyn, and the Bronx, right? So each state, the power is within the people. So say if a governor in New York or like Mayor Adams, he's been doing bad, right? Next election cycle, because of Mayor Adams' poor performance, the people could vote Mayor Adams out and vote for somebody different that's going to go in the best interest of the people. That's like with the election where you saw on all levels, Donald Trump won the people's vote, the popular vote, the electoral vote, and other votes, which means that the people of America chose a conservative Republican form of government instead of a leftist form of government. So the power is still within the people. When you talk about state socialism and you talk about state capitalism or communism, The people have no power to vote, or the individual doesn't have any power to vote who they want or who they don't want. The state is giving the people who they want. It's like the same. It's like with the constitutional monarchy with Australia and Britain. Those families are those states have power over the people, and they tell the people what they want. They give the people what they think is best interest for the people. Uh-huh. And see, that's the problem I have with socialism and communism. Capitalism is straightforward. You know what it is. With socialism, because you got it from Karl Marx, everybody interprets something different, and it still attaches itself to capitalism, right? Because with socialism now, you want equal rights for the workers, and you want to get rid of a class. But then, if the workers control the productions of themselves, they're still going to now outwork other workers and still put themselves in an unequal kind of class system. You know what I'm saying? That's the problem with the ideology. As opposed to where you have capitalism, all you got to do is put rules and regulations in it. So you can create healthy capitalism so people don't get greedy at the top. And I understand the thing with the corporations because that's the problem. There's so many subsets. You have, uh, I forgot the different levels of socialism that there is, right? But I agree with the corporation, what you're saying with the corporations, right? Because I think a couple weeks ago, FedEx, which is a corporation, laid off a lot of workers, which a lot of those workers were dependent upon that corporation. Now, when corporations do that, they do that to cut costs, and to save money. And the thing is now, the corporations are going to pick themselves to stay alive before they pick the worker, right? And that's the problem with a socialism where um, the state, like a corporation, is in control of the production of outcome for the workers. Is not if the state is going bankrupt, all they're going to do is going to cut the workers or lay off people or kick people out of the land, like in feudalism, to be able to cut costs and save money, right? So I understand your thing what about what you're talking about with corporations. The thing is that the worker or the laborer has an opportunity to find other work in other areas. Huh? Oh, Mono Dragon Corporation in Spain. Yeah, but the thing is, if the worker controls, that's the same thing as going back to capitalism where the private person is in ownership, right? The worker controls his production outcome, but guess what that worker can do with a capitalist thing? He can become a um, small business or sole proprietor where he hires other workers. Yeah, but in a hierarchy system, right? The worker can work himself up to management. Like if you're working at a McDonald's franchise, you can become a manager and eventually become a franchise owner. So it's not like you're staying stuck in a worker level. You can work yourself your way up on that social hierarchy. Do you know what I'm saying? As opposed now, so I'm gonna go look up that Mandragon Corp. I can look that up right now. Let me do that right now. Mano Dragon, Mano Dragon. Um, hold on. I'm gonna look that up right now. Mano Dragon. Yeah, but you have to understand the thing about human beings, right? Human beings, by nature, we're individuals, right? If there's no overseer or there's no person managing human beings gonna do whatever they want to do. Eventually, one worker is gonna outwork the other worker output, and he's gonna outdo one worker. And there needs to be a certain hierarchy to manage things and make sure that chaotic humans don't get become greedier than the other one. This is the thing y'all missing. Human beings are always gonna be human beings, and we're always gonna fall down to our chaotic nature. How is that exploitation if that small business has to pay you money? That small business has to pay you. You cannot work at a small business or corporation and they not pay you money. That goes against a lot of labor laws in America. They have to pay you. If a small business doesn't pay you, you could quit that small business and they will not have any workers to work at their small business. There's laws on the books for that. Mando Dragon Corporation, a Federation of Worker Corp. Oh shit! Let me look at this. I'm gonna look this up right quick. Mando Dragon Corporation is a corporation. Oh, fuck this shit. Not bad. Mando Dragon Corporation is a corporation and federation of worker cooperatives based in the vast region of Spain. It was founded in the town of Mando Dragon in 1956 by a father, I guess, like a Roman Catholic, and a group of his students at a technical college. He founded its product was perforated heaters. It is the seventh largest Spanish company in terms of asset turnover, and the leading business group in Basque Country. At the end of 2016, it employed over 70,000 people in 257 companies and organizations in four areas of activity: finance, industry, and retail knowledge. By 2019, 81,000 people were employed. In 2024, it had over 70,000 workers. Ooh. Let me see what it's let me see what it's let me see. So let's talk about business culture. Meta Dragon cooperatives are united by a humanist concept of business. A philosophy is participation and solidarity, and a shared business culture. The culture is rooted in a shared mission and a number of principles. Corporate values and business policies. Over the years, these links have been embodied in a series of operating rules approved on a majority basis by a cooperative Congress, which regulate the activity of the governing bodies of the corporation. The grassroots cooperatives and the divisions they belong to form the organizational, institutional, and economic points of view as well as in terms of assets. The framework of business culture has been structured based on common culture derived from 10 basic cooperative principles, in which the Mandragon is rooted: open admission, democratic organization, and sovereignty of labor, instrumental and subordinate nature of capital. Hmm. Let me see this. Let me see if it goes directly to. Oh, at Mandragon, the agreed upon wage ratios between executive work and field or factory work, which earns a minimum wage. These ratios range from 3 to 1 to 9 to 1. In different cooperatives, an average 5 to 1. That is the general manager of an average Mando Dragon. Cooperative earns no more than 5 times as much as the theoretical minimum wage paid in their cooperative. For most workers, this ratio is smaller because there are few Mando Dragon worker owners that earn minimum wages, because most jobs are somewhat specialized and classified at higher wage levels. The wage ratio of a cooperative is decided periodically by its worker owners through a democratic vote. Let me see. Oh, let me see what you're saying. Let me see what you're saying over here. But I thought in a capitalist society, no. Let me think about what I'm going to say. Um, anyway, guys, click the like, click the share, click the subscribe to my channel for more content. Over here, I'm trying to create a culture of individuals who are intelligent and can have intelligent discussions and debate, healthy debates, right? Let me see. Let me read what y'all was reading. Oh. Right. That's the thing, right? Not everybody can be a chief or an alpha. There's always going to be an alpha or the chief or the owner, and you're always going to have workers. That's just how society is, right? Whether it's communism, whatever whatever your poison you pick from, right? You're always going to have people that are workers, and you're always going to have people that own things. Well, the thing is that human beings are not always cooperative. You understand what I'm saying? Like, human beings, they're gonna be human beings that are selfish. Like, I'm like that. Like, my thing is, I will go to work. I will respect the people at the job. I will respect my bosses. I'll work and do my thing. But after work is done, I come home. I'm for me. I'm not trying to cooperate with nobody else besides the people in my immediate vicinity. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing with human beings. Like, human beings are individuals. I want to say I don't want to say they're individuals by nature, because they're because, like, you have a nation, you have a national, you have a nation, right, where um human beings seek to be social, to socialize with each other. But then you have human beings that want to be that socialize for one moment, and then they're introverted, I want to say. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like, uh, uh. Now, see, slavery is different from individuality, though. Slavery is when one group of people enslaves another group of people for economic gain. Individuality, you're not enslaving anybody. Individuality, you're just sticking to yourself. All right. Let me answer what River Moon is saying. How is private property an enforced construct? Don't in don't when you go back to hunter gatherers, people own private property. Don't when you go back to the days of caveman, people had individualities. Don't when you go to Africa, everybody had their own individual hut and their own individual village. This is what I'm saying. When you say private property, that means I own my property. Private properties, I own. This is my property and I own it. I could do what I want with my private property. So how is that enforced? Saying? Oh, that's probably. Let me look it up. What's the difference between private and personal? Private property versus personal property. Okay. The owner has a distributive right to exclude others, right to command a fair share of personal property. In anarchist theory, private property typically refers to capital or means of production, while personal property refers to consumer and non-capital goods and services. So I see what you're saying. Let me see an example of private property. Private property may consist of real estate, buildings, objects, intellectual property, copyright, patent, trademark, and trade secrets. Let me see. Let me see. Personal property can be characterized as either tangible or intangible. Oh, no. I want to look that up. The Fifth Amendment specifies that the government cannot seize private property for public use without providing fair compensation. Additionally, the 14th Amendment states, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, and property without due process of law. What's private versus personal? The owner has a distributive right to exclude others, the right to command a fair share of personal property. In anarchist theory, private property typically refers to capital or the means of production, while personal property refers to consumer and non-capital goods and services. So I see what you're saying. So you're saying that the private property, that person can dictate how he wants to dictate how he wants to. Let me see what y'all saying. So I get it. So you're saying like the private property, that person can dictate how he pays his workers, or so it's basically what Karl Marx's argument is against it, where the private person who's in ownership of that private business. I see what you're saying. But don't in a capitalist society, there's rules and regulations against that, and I had the rules and regulations against that, but for some reason today I can't find it. Hold on. Regulations in a capitalist society. See, but the original intent of my video was to expose how Marxism and communism leached itself into the black community, and while black folks are dumb the way they are now. Because even though we can just debate the nuances of capitalism versus Marxism and communism or Marxism is, or as the brother in the chat corrected me and said, is state capitalism, is where there's a government that's in control of the people and how they produce and how they move. In the black community now, right? In order for the Democrats who are pushing what it seems to be communism or state capitalism, really, in order for them to have control over black folks, they have to keep black folks in the struggling condition that they're in. Mm-hmm. Hold on, let me answer you, right? So within the black community, how the Democrats control black folks under the disguise of black liberation and these things is they give black people things. Under capitalism, black folks would have to work to get their own shit. And they'd have to do for themselves, not needing liberals on the left. And oftentimes that what happens is now black folks have to adjust to weirdo leftist ideologies like LGBT-isms, which goes against what black people originally were in the 60s and in the 1800s going into the 1920s, right? Black folks originally were conservative and they were traditional, basically capitalist, and they were doing good. They were doing good during segregation, being conservatives, even though they was under Jim Crow. Black folks had their own industry. They had their own grocery stores, their own hospitals, their own this and that. And that was under a capitalist conservative thing. As soon as they went more liberal and left, this is where you see the black community begin to destroy itself. This is when you had the civil rights movement that was socialist and leftist, and black folks started to integrate with leftist people. That's when the community started to go downhill. This is why when you try to tell black folks about certain things that's hindering you from the left, from socialism or communism or Marxism, it's like they argue against you with it. This is why there's a lot of broke ideologies amongst black folks. This is why black folks preach about being broke and not progressing, right? In the black community, there's this like initiation that you gotta struggle, and if you're not in the struggle, or if you're not on the lower tier level, you're not considered a real black person or a real ninja. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of the socialism, a lot of left-leaning principles. Not socialism like what Specter's talking about. That's actually different. That's like a different kind of socialism. And that's the problem with the left. There's so many different subsets and shit, right? And the reason why the FBI targeted a lot of those civil rights movements is because a lot of them were preaching communist things, right? And I think black folks, in my opinion, capitalism is the best way for them to go, because they were under capitalism during Jim Crow, and they had their own towns, cities, they had their own hospitals under capitalism, being conservatives under Jim Crow, and they were doing better. Let me see. Liberal and left are still different, though. Liberals are really neoconservatives. Leftists are anti-liberal. But see, this is the thing, right? You have the classical liberal and you have the moderate liberal. What we have today is a whole the way left-leaning liberal. That's what I'm saying. The thing is, Jesus Joshua, you seem to be a Mexican. I don't know how you know that. How you know that? Mexicans didn't go through, but you know, I'm not even gonna get into that argument, bro. Hold on. So how did black folks come up with a Black Wall Street under Jim Crow? How did so many black towns, industry, black folks with their own baseball Negro league, black folks, black men who were patriarchs of their household and millionaires, how was that doing bad under Jim Crow? Now, I will agree with you that a lot of those Southern Democrats were terrorizing black folks and attacking black folks in their communities. And it was the job of the Republicans to protect black folks from those Democrats. And it was because of that 1877 deal or compromise, which I don't want to get into that now, but how can you tell me black folks wasn't doing good under Jim Crow when they had their own stuff? They had their own hospitals, their own businesses, Black Wall Street. Not even just Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Alabama, but across the country. Black folks had their own stuff out here in Central Park. How many of you know that in Central Park, black people had their own communities over there? Will I agree with you that you had the Klan that were Democrats messing with them? The Republicans were Northern liberal. Come on, bro. Y'all, I don't know what y'all talking about. We're going to break down. Were Democrats conservative? So now I have thing to look up. Okay. Y'all telling me that's the common thing where they said they flip ideologies? Yeah, but that was from the Democrats. Oh, in the 1800s. That was from the Democrats, Joshua. Hold on, but they still were able to create a Black Wall Street. Huh, you were right. Huh, that is interesting. So what I'm reading here, this is from the studentofhistory.com, ideologies flip, and I'm going to do some further research into this. Yeah, but see, the problem that happened with Jim Crow during the South was the 1877 Compromise, where there was a deal between the Republicans and the Democrats that if the Republicans removed the federal troops from the South, the Democrats would give I forgot the name of that presidency. So when they remove, so when the Republicans removed the federal troops from the South, that's what gave the Democrats carte blanche to burn down a lot of those cities. See, the Republicans, who were supposed to be an anti-slave party, they were supposed to protect black people from the Democrats, right? You're supposed to protect black folks from those things. But because of that deal, they had to leave that 100 year between 1877 going up to the 1960s. Because of that deal, the Republicans could not intervene to what the Democrats were doing. And that's what the problem was. So that's why a lot of people are saying that there was a switch with the Republican Party and the Democrats. Let me see this. And the Democratic Party was founded in 1828, while the Republican Party dates back to 1854. In its early years, the Republican Party considered to be quite liberal, while the Democrats were known for staunch conservatism. This is the exact opposite of how each party would be described today. This change did not happen overnight, however, instead it was a slew set of changes and policies that caused the great switch. At the outbreak of the Civil War, Republicans controlled majority of the northern states. The party sought to expand the United States, encourage settlement of the West, and help to fund the Transcontinental Railroad. Let me get to the meat of the matter. Democrat represented a range of views but shared a commitment to Thomas Jefferson's concept of an arrogant farming society. They viewed the central government as an enemy of individual liberties. Because most Democrats were inside the states, they fought to keep slavery legal. Post-Civil War policy, as the war came to close, the Republican Party controlled the government and used power to protect formerly enslaved people and guarantee them civil rights. This included 3 Reconstruction Amendments, which won Republicans the loyalty and vote of America's black population. Unsurprisingly, most Democrats disapproved of these measures. Okay, so apparently for right now, so now, no, we're not going to assault people, John Connor. Respect me in the chat and other people in the chat. Y'all can debate or disagree respectfully, but don't name call each other. So I see what my man up there is saying. He's saying that at one point the Republican Party was considered to be liberal and the Democrats were conservative. This is confusing to me. Because I've heard that before. I've heard that the Republican parties, I heard that the parties flip. But how black people say that the parties flip, let me just explain this, right? In black culture, black people say that the parties switched but they say that the Democrats, I'm trying to gather my thoughts on how they say it. Because according to this, the Democrats were conservatives and the Republicans were liberals. How black people describe the switch as being that the Republicans were conservatives and the Democrats were liberals. That's how they describe it. Because they're saying that the Republicans were so whenever time you tell black folks that the Republicans was the anti-slave party, they'll say today, well, the party switched and the Democrats became the anti-slave party and the Republicans became the slave party. That's what they say. I think you know what it is. I think it depends on the state. Because I'm pretty sure there were some Democrats during this election that voted for Donald Trump or were conservative. Hold on. Well, this is the deceptiveness of the Democratic Party or the liberals, right? What they did, because they couldn't suppress black people, they positioned themselves to align with black people to destroy the quality of their black liberation movements. So that's probably why they flipped. So it's like, if I can't beat them, why not join them? Because what I see today from the Democrats is that they're pushing a lot of those LGBT-isms, basically what the left is pushing today onto black folks. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. So it sounds to me that the only reason why the Democrats switched to being an anti-slave party was to destroy black folks, just from a friendly point of view. Let me look this up. Were Republicans conservative? Let me look this up. Let's look at the history of the Republican Party. Okay, John Connor, we get it. You said they never flipped as a GOP. But apparently the brother above you saying it took lots of decades to flip, right? The Republican Party, also known as the GOP, Grand Old Party, is one of the two major political parties in the United States. It's the second oldest existing political party in the United States after the main political rival, the Democratic Party. In 1854, the Republican Party emerged to combat the expansion of slavery into the Western territories after passing of the Kansas-Nebraska Act. The early Republican Party consisted of Northern Protestants, factory workers, professional businessmen, prosperous farmers, and after the Civil War, also former black slaves. The party had very little support from white Southerners at the time, who predominantly backed the Democratic Party in Solid South. and from the Irish and German Catholics who made up a major Democratic voting bloc. While both parties adopted pro-business policies in the 19th. No, that's not what I'm looking for. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Let me see. Let me see this. Grand Old Party. There's a lot of things I gotta look up. I gotta look up what a damn wino Republican is. Okay, so I gotta look. I gotta deep dive into the flip. I gotta really deep dive into that flip because before why I'm disagreeing with you is that because before 1960s with Lyndon Baines Johnson's welfare state, black folks were Republican and conservative. You see what I'm saying? When Lyndon Baines Johnson came in, civil rights movement came in, black folks became liberal and left. So that's where I'm having an issue with the thing when they say they flip. Because if they flip, because if the Republicans were liberal, black folks would have stayed Republican. See what I'm saying? So I have to go deep dive into that. Shit is going 3 hours. All right, so I gotta go eat. I'm hungry. Thank you for some of the guys that came into the chat. We had our healthy debates. In conclusion, in my opinion, even though there's some faulty nuances with capitalism, I think it's the best thing for black folks or for America, right? The reason being is that even though my brother Spector in there, he's saying that you can have socialism where it doesn't take away the rights from the worker, it's more of a cooperative thing, right? I still think that private businesses can still be regulated, and they do have regulations on the books for those privately owned corporations. The problem is that you have people in positions of government that won't enforce those laws on the book, like the FDA. The FDA is supposed to be something that regulates food and drugs as far as capitalism is concerned. But because a lot of the corruption amongst the FDA, a lot of shit gets through America's gates and onto your food plate and poison you, right? So the problem, in my opinion, with capitalism is that the people that are supposed to enforce the rules to regulate certain ideas to create a healthy capitalist society, they're not enforcing those rules. And then they give the private only owned businesses too much power over the laborer. And then now it breeds resentment from that laborer, and then now it creates socialism and communism. And capitalists, you have to recognize that. Privately owned business, you have to recognize that. Like, if you want to keep your stuff privately owned, you cannot be a mad, angry dictator. It's going to keep breeding what we have now with communism and socialism. So there's got to be a balance with that and a correction of that, right? But anyway, I think black folks should reject communism and socialism because it's going to put a bigger target on your back. Serious business. On top of whatever racism things that was going on in the past, on top of that, you're preaching something that's going to put two targets on your back, which is why a lot of pro-black organizations got shut down. Because now, how could you be a Black Panther Party, preach socialism, but you want to benefit from the Second Amendment that came from a capitalist idea? But anyway, this was Kid Shorty Gaming Nation. Subscribe, like, share me out. I don't only do topics like these. I do gaming. I do. Sometimes I come on this channel to talk about certain social issues that I have problems with, and this, that, and the third. And I want to create a culture on my channel where we can have healthy debates and we can respect each other, regardless of our different ideologies and opinions, especially when it comes to manhood and masculinity. I'm going to go live tomorrow, I think around 1 o'clock or 2 p.m., so stay tuned.